audio people, composers or sound designers, to be able to bring in their material to be heard by their peers and by fellow developers. So we've always had a really good turnout of great sounding music, lots of great critique in the past. So I will let the other panelists here introduce themselves.
Okay, so I'm first. I'm DB Cooper. I'm a voice actor, director, casting person, and consumer of games. My pedigree is in musical theater, so that is why I actually got the privilege to sit on this panel. I came here by accident the second year we were doing it over at COSI. Somebody didn't show up, and it's like, I'll offer critique, and it's been the thing I look forward to every year, ever since.
Very cool. And my name is Brian Skeel. I'm a composer and sound designer, also a consumer of games. And I've been writing a lot of music for libraries, so stuff you would hear in movie trailers and commercials, and kind of stumbled my way into games a couple years ago. It's been a blast. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I'm Sean Beeson. I'm a composer, mostly in games and other forms of media. Really kind of anything that requires music, I'll add music to. So the way that this goes is basically...
And seriously, the best mustache in the room, okay? Hands down.
So what we'll do is we'll call your name so you can stand up and introduce yourself, just so we know who you are. And you can talk about your piece so that we have some context of what we're listening to. And then we'll play the piece and provide any constructive criticism or thoughts that we have. So without further ado, we will start with Brandon, if you want to stand up and introduce yourself.
What's going on? I'm Brandon Ledbetter. This track is for Level 7, which we mentioned in demoing this entire weekend. And this track was a pretty hardcore time crunch. 2 weeks before this convention, we changed the intro demo area, and I was given the instruction of it's a casino that takes place in a nightmare. And the two reference tracks they gave me were a song from Persona 5, so very jazzy, and then the Upside Down theme from Stranger Things. And they said, just put those two together and you'll be fine.
Brandon says Brandon's head explodes. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around that point, yeah. So this one's a bit of an interesting one.
All right, Brandon. Well, let's check out A Long Night. Here we go.
hit the spec pretty good. That was, it definitely got those vibes from Persona and Stranger Things. So I was typing at about like 55 seconds into the piece, and my timings are I'm gonna get a timer going so I can give exact timings on things. I was like, the piece is becoming slightly repetitive, and then you changed it. So I was like, okay, there's that piece of feedback. And I think you did that a couple times. Like you took the piece right to the limit of where I would be like, well, it's time to change it up, and you changed it. So I was very glad. The piece was mixed. I mean, I even had the speakers facing away from me, and I was like, I could tell the mix was good. Like everything was super clear, even though I'm on the other side of the speakers. There was a couple times where I felt like the downbeat of the keys were like preemptively ahead of the beat, and you did it about 4 times throughout the piece. So I don't know if that was intentional.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of
You're
figured
talking about the Rose keyboard, right?
how it was just ahead. It like almost felt like a hesitation or like a misquantization. But then after the 4th time, I was like, okay, no, I think this is intentional.
Right.
And it sounded okay, but
Touch it slightly off the grid.
I really like, well, as you can tell, there was a bit of lo-fi hip-hop in there, but like, I really like New Best and things like that, and they leave a lot of unquantized stuff, so like it kind of sloppy sometimes, especially with live recordings, so stuff for like Rhodes keyboards, I'll make sure to record it myself.
It sounds handmade.
I try and make it like that, except for like any of the arpeggiators and stuff like that, something that should feel robotic, fully quantized or whatever.
If you're going for that handmade, kind of lo-fi feel, I might look at either different sounds for the drums or even punching them in manually with pads or with keys, because they felt very on the grid, which I'm a big fan of. But if we're going for like this really flowy kind of dream state, I feel like those could move in and out of the bar. They don't necessarily need to be lined up robotically. Another note, I was getting a little bit more of an Akira Yamaoka kind of vibe. Yeah, and that is a huge compliment, dude. Big Silent Hill fan. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the scene in the game, because the vibe I was getting was, and this might be the Rhodes and the era of N64 music, but this felt like an underwater kind of theme.
Yeah, well, I mean, David Wise is my other big influence, so yes. Yeah, so the scene itself doesn't start out as a quote-unquote nightmare. It's just supposed to be a dream state. You just like wake up, you're in this weird off-colored bar. I remember they sent me a screenshot, and it's all blue and purple tones. So I was like, okay, so it's pretty laid back. And the idea is you go around and you talk to all these people that are characters that are going to be foreshadowing the game. And then when you go to the bartender, buckle for this sentence, turns into a werewolf and then fights you in a card game. And then in that one,
I wanna
it's a
play
different
this
track.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a part
spoiler
of it.
alert.
Yeah.
Spoilers. At that point, the track changes to a much more standard nightmare track. Yeah.
So one more point that I want to make. I love the chords, the colors you're using. If we're going for that dreamlike state, don't be afraid to put like a low pass filter on a lot of your sounds. For stuff that's supposed to feel hazy in game, I feel like the sound palette was very bright, which is, again, the sounds were great. But if you're going for that dreamlike state, muffled might be cool.
On the other hand, I really loved that super pitchy stuff. That was really super duper sharp. That was like one of my, I loved your instrumentation. And I really super duper loved how restrained you were with the percussion. It was just exquisite in places. And I could feel, I felt as though you were purposely being restrained with it. There were places where I wanted more. You had a change somewhere midway through. I wanted more variation. There was a transition, and I wanted a drop of some kind. Just an intimation, even if it was something just once. Because one of the things you did at around 2 minutes was you had this really super gentle, just a beat, like on the down, just on 1, 2, 3, 4, and you did it maybe twice, and then it never repeated like that again. I'm going, yes, I love this. That was unbelievably fabulous. The other thing I super duper loved were your sweeps. The quality of that noise. I don't know how you made it. Somebody else would probably figure it out. I loved it. And I just loved the quality of it because it wasn't similar to anything I'd ever heard before. It wasn't, this is obviously pink noise, this is obviously brown noise. It had grit to it, which was really marvelous. You're welcome.
Yeah. Great work.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's next, MC Sean?
Next is Drew with Smoky Mountain.
All right.
Hey, what's up? I'm Drew Swisher. So this one's kind of an experiment. In last October, I did this thing where I just made an EP over the course of the month, and was just kind of like, let's see what I make when I just kind of like decide that I'm going to finish the song, the sketches that I'm doing this month, and just put them on the internet. So I'm doing that again this month. I had the piano riff that you're going to hear in the beginning already, and kind of just filled out from there. I'm really visual with my music. Usually I'm trying to take some kind of imagery that I've seen before and translate it into music. So as the name suggests, it's inspired by hiking in the Smoky Mountains and kind of like being under the canopy of trees, kind of being near caves, and then also coming out onto an actual full mountaintop and sort of seeing everything. So that's the idea of it. That's the imagery I'm going for.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, here is Smoky Mountain.
Always get me, man. You always freaking get me every year. I swear to God. All I could write was, oh man. at 45 when it picked up and started coming. Did you see us all go? When you added the percussion at the very, very beginning, you did a percussive thing where it was kind of a musical tacit, and we all went, what happened? I love that, you monster. And so when things started picking up, it was just so cherry sweet at 45. I just loved it so much, and I wrote, I love this, oh man, I want to buy this song. And the thing that I was listening for and noticing is that as much, even though it's an instrumental, it has a singable, salient melody line, and I wrote like Mozart, because I mean, you can sing that stuff. And that's what most of this tune had. And I loved when the dissonant stuff came in. Oh boy, this sound dissonance at, I guess it was 126, you did something. I also just loved the depth of it. It was like way out. It was so awesome of that. You had surprise chord changes when you surprise me musically, it is my favorite thing in the world, and this is why I love this event. Because when I'm surprised musically, it makes me a happy human being. Because I am very jaded when it comes to movies and music and whatever. It just takes an awful lot to make me happy, and this was surprise chord change, 202 dissonant surprise, just surprise, and lose that last chord.
Okay.
Please and thank you for a Tootsie Roll.
Have to agree.
Just the piano, because it ended.
Yes, have to agree. It had a great ending without that.
And I really want to buy this tune from you.
I loved the integration of sound design with it. Like the IDM type drum parts were really cool. Like it's not typically something that I would envision in my head if I was on a mountaintop, but it might be something I would play on my phone. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that it absolutely surprised me. But having that kind of audible narrative of here's what I want you to associate this music and these tones with, by having the cleverly panning birds and was that a camera or was that a projector screen?
At the beginning, that was a cassette tape, closing in and then rewinding.
Got it. Okay, that was really cool. Yeah, I personally felt that when that came in, it might have been a little jarring, but maybe that was the whole point. You know, maybe it was,
That's okay. I didn't
hold on,
understand that.
I want to take you on a journey. That journey starts now. I thought that was really cool.
I loved the sonic departure. It was because it made us all go, and listen, anything that makes me sit forward is something that I like, pretty much.
Yeah, so the hooting owl was great. I loved how that was just in the music as an instrument, and then you had the low bass thing was like a bari sax or a contrabassoon or something. It was like brr, brr. I was like, that's hilarious.
Very interesting
I really liked it,
instrumentation.
because it was sometimes you hear those instruments and it's used as just like a replacement for a bass. But here you just put it in. I mean, there were how many different instruments doing different things that you would only hear once or maybe twice. So you heard it the first time and then you're like, I'm listening for that thing. So it's I could listen to this track, the middle section in particular, multiple times and hear things that I did not hear the first time because I was so busy listening for the bari, was it a bari sax or something?
I'm not quite positive which part you're talking about.
The one that goes, brr, brr.
It's just a couple of notes.
Is it like a glitch?
No.
I don't know.
No, that was
think so.
that IDM drum glitch kind of thing that I thought was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had the timpani, which I thought was, really in terms of a piece of music that could be used in a game or something, the overall piece I felt started in a spot and ended in a spot that would make it a bit difficult maybe to use the piece. But it was the stuff in the middle was so sweet. And the thing is, as a whole, the piece was great. It was a journey. That when you listen to it all, you're like, no, I get it, and it was worth it. And even the piano chord at the end, I've listened to your other stuff, and I'm like, that might actually be the first chord to the next piece, right? It might just be this continuation of another piece. But the middle section, I just wanted it to be longer. Like, it just was so good. And then you have the part with the timpani, which at first I was like, this doesn't feel like it fits. It feels like it's a little out of the zone. But then you like started to merge that back into the really good stuff. So it worked really well. So I think in a 152, you did a chord that like, you could even use that as a pivot point to modulate the whole piece into a different key. And I think at that point, even with a modulation, you could just repeat everything that you had just done previously in a different key with slightly different instrumentation, and it would sound fresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. It's very nice. I think live elements, just maybe one or two, could even just bring the piece like completely to life.
Yeah.
Just even like a guitar or a sax, like a bass.
Or if you
sax,
hire someone to
goes-
play that violin part.
That would be so awesome.
I know a guy.
Hey,
Quick question: do you think the last section? Do you think it's too long? Because there are elements that are like adding in, taking away, but it's nothing super transformative. So I wasn't sure if it was too.
it's a great. So my thought on that, like the overall structure is, it starts down here and then it apexes really quickly, comes down, and then that lull might be a bit long, but a good way to supplement that might be to put some of the beat heavy stuff, reference it again near the end. So if you can play with different arrangement ideas, come back to that original idea to kind of reinforce that musical idea.
I think you just got me curious as a listener, right? So at that point, it's like, even if you do something that's not exciting, I'm listening intently.
Yeah.
Or
Right?
do something
so I'm
completely
waiting
different,
for
yeah.
the next thing. And whether or not there's something, you did it different than I would have done it, but it was better than I would have done it too, right? So I think that's the point.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great work.
Great work, man.
The music's always so happy too. I love happy music.
I think it made me cry last year, and Jordan said, "Oh, there goes DB."
There goes DB.
Next is Jen with Song of the Beloved, Movement 3.
Hello, I'm Jen. This is the third movement of a three-movement piece that's
7 minutes long.
It's the way that it's
What should I do?
structured is that I actually happen to be reading familiar with Song of Solomon. There's like this. These verses that basically say, "Love is strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave." And I was just really struck by that sort of devastating passion. And the way that it's set up is you have a he, a she, and then you have kind of like a Greek chorus, or you have commenters. And so the Song of the Beloved is, you have the beloved, which is the she, and then the he is king, the king Solomon, I suppose. And so you basically have characters. And so I'm trying to give voices to characters. So hopefully you'll be able to pick out who's the beloved, who's the he, and who are the commenters.
Well, it's a remarkably long piece, and we can probably only play about 2.5 minutes of it. Will we hear all of the characters in the first 2 or 3
You
minutes?
might not, but that's okay. I mean, if you guys have to do what you have to do.
Okay.
There's a couple different sections. The first beginning section is one, it's the sort of devastating passion part, and then you roll into more of the kind of, because there's another section that says many waters can't quench this love. It's her declaration of like, my love won't end, and then that part sort of spins. So it's a sort of different character of the same diamond. So if you want to, I guess, skip forward, you can, or not, whatever. You do whatever you need to do.
Okay. Well, I'll just hit play, and then when it feels like it's time to start giving critiques, we'll just fade it out and give us some feedback. So here we go. This is Song of the Beloved, Movement 3.
kinda
we'll call
seems
it
like
right
a-
there. Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the rhythm got me right away, right? Like when you start something rhythmically, I'm usually just sucked in. And like you didn't just do a standard rhythmic pattern, right? So like I think that got me a little more interested in what you were doing. And I was getting some very big, at least in the first minute or so, was a very strong Philip Glass vibes, which is good because I love Philip Glass. Little Yanni, also a huge compliment because Yanni's awesome. We're mustache bros. Especially at 38. Like that was a standout like musical section to me where it was like this could be something that you would have heard Philip Glass do, like as an iconic sound. And you came back to that same kind of piano playing and pattern later in the piece. And so I think a piece that's this long, like you developed that idea twice in this 2-minute and 30-second section. So you probably continue to develop some of those ideas. And I know that you're a pianist and you're a very good pianist, so I think hearing this live, like even if the strings are still mock-upped, live piano, I think, would just bring so much more passion to this piece because it's so passionate even with samples that if it was a live piano, I think it would just be just even more amazing with live playing because there's some things dynamically on samples that just don't translate. And at 2 minutes, what is happening like in the story at 2 minutes?
What's at 2 minutes?
That's
That's right
the
before-
complex time signature? Is that?
That's when you went back to that rhythmic pattern and you started to do all those modulations.
You're jumping to
Jumping.
the minor chord movements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically you have the beginning where it's talking about sort of this devastating love, and then you go into for me the whole beginning section is love is as strong as death, and then that section is more of like its jealousy is unyielding. That's sort of like unyielding. I don't care what key I'm in. I don't care what tempo or time signature I'm in. I'm always still feeling that same love, that same jealousy that's unyielding. And then into the next section, it goes into the mini waters, which is more of a spinning.
Because I liked how it took that same rhythmic pattern and then it did the minor chord jumps and then became major key, but then you were employing the same rhythmic pattern. And I was like, this is going to get into concerto territory. I thought it was going to have a cadenza or some kind of a solo with piano. But I really liked it, especially how you developed it. When it was just piano and strings and some percussion, like you kept it fresh. And I think hearing with live piano, even if it just was only piano even and no strings, would just be amazing.
And I really loved the string accompaniment because it was surprising, and your harmony was really thoughtful. Really, really thoughtful, and I super duper appreciated. Like, I didn't get a time in particular. There was one particular just harmonic movement that just made me go, yep, that's awesome. And so it was somewhere between 30 seconds and 1:30, so it's right in there somewhere. Loved your depth. I really liked your mix on this. It was really super impressive. And I must say, when the piano came in at 20, I just kind of like, this is really sweet. It was sweet. You know, it's and we all sat forward kind of when things started getting complicated. So, I started trying to count, and you were listening to the major and minor, and so everybody was, I think, affected differently by that chaos, which I think is pretty boss. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta mirror Sean for a second. He said Philip Glass, and I've always thought your music reminded me of Johan Johansson and Ludovico Einaudi. Is that how you say his name? Very minimalist style pianist.
I'll have to look 'em
But
up.
it's very piano centric. With everything else is supporting that, and it's rare to find something like that works so well. And I think you did that. Go over my notes again. The dynamics, I think, were one of the strongest parts of this, because there was obviously a story going on. Even if I couldn't tell what it was without having that explanation beforehand, it kind of made me want to listen again and imply my own story. You know what I'm saying? so it was very, very visual in a, where am I going for it? It was very visual in a musical way. So I think you brought across a very cinematic approach to music, even though it was so minimal.
Evocative.
Very evocative.
Thanks.
All right, very nice. Next is John with piano and fight background song 10.
Hi, I'm John. This is piano and backgrounds fight song number 10. I have been a bit out of work this year as the company I normally write music for, Multivarious, is going through some structural changes. So I decided to spend the year just crafting the portfolio and polishing it up and making it sound good. Still working on the polish, so I bounced this about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, noted.
The production values are not the best, I understand, but this is one of my favorite pieces that I've written in the portfolio, and I wanted to get your takes on it so I can, elevate my best.
Awesome.
Yeah, all right. So, piano background fight 10. Here we go. Rad. Very Final Fantasy VII.
Yes!
Yeah. Especially since it's in 7. I was counting, I'm going, yeah, this has a good groove. That piano ostinato,
Yes.
so good, so good. Very powerful. Would have loved to heard that doubled with like a guitar or a cello or something like that. That might be my favorite riff in the whole thing. Apart from that, though, everything else was really strong. Like I love the melodic elements. There were it's obviously very chaotic, but there are a lot of really great grounding elements. Like you had pads the entire time that gave it a sense of like, yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's all kind of connected. The melodies were very memorable, and I really enjoyed that. This is for like a boss fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, can totally feel that.
That's the same thing I wrote. Black mages. Yeah, I told them like, yup, there they are for sure. Surprises all around with this. There was a place where it got a little spare around 30. I wrote, I think it needs a little more, and then that piano ostinato came in. I'm like, yeah, I want to hear some more of that. And so totally grooved on that. I did not know or care what time signature it was in because I was not counting it. I was just listening to it. It wasn't so alarmingly not in 4 or 8 that it distracted me. So what it seemed like was the right signature for the tune, which I really, really liked. I really super liked the resurgence of the ostinato at 140, and in the drums in the last part, there was a chaotic nature to them that I actually didn't, what I wanted instead was I wanted snare on every upbeat. And I thought, yep, that, because it was elsewhere in there. And what happened was I was expecting it to, and I think that would sound actually pretty boss if you want to give that a shot.
Pun intended, boss. Sound very boss. Pun intended, it's boss music, right?
It's boss music,
Boss
yes.
music.
So yes.
Yeah. So I'm echoing a lot of what they said. It sounded exactly like it could be from Final Fantasy. At 48 seconds in, I thought maybe having a change in instrumentation, just in terms of like the roles that the instruments were playing. Because at that point, you kind of had the piano that was doing its thing, and you had the drums that were kind of doing its thing, and it was working really good. But I kind of felt like it needed a bit of a change, maybe even just in rhythm, which kind of is echoing what you're saying with having the snare, the emphasis of the rhythm change. And then there was a couple times where I thought even you went from this section to this section to this section just seamlessly, that it's like in a lot of turn-based RPGs, like the battle music or whatever, the fight music, there'll be spots where it'll hit a point and they'll just have like a drum fill, and then it'll go into a kind of a different section. And so you went from this section to this section, different music, but I think having some kind of a break there, so you're just having a bit of a breather, would maybe help those sections feel like they're not, because as it was now, you'd go from a section that's very rhythmically dense, that's got the piano ostinato, to something that just felt very sparse, which I think is okay, but maybe the transitions, having a bit of that release of tension or something between those would be good. And then at 108 and 110, it got very sparse. So I thought maybe if there was some kind of continuation of an ostinato of some kind, or something that was kind of helping to keep the energy going, it just felt like the energy there compared to the rest of the piece, which felt chaotic and just like grooving, right, would kind of help keep that going. But the piano bass line and the rhythm combination was spot on.
Nope.
Yeah, I would not change that too much.
I want to tell you that as much as we are all saying that it makes us think of Final Fantasy, it does not feel derivative.
No.
At all.
Not at all. Yeah.
This is not mannerism, Jack. This is real.
You said this was kind of a rush production job. If you had more time, what would you do with it?
Probably, it would probably mostly address what Sean was talking about.
It's just like arrangement.
Bringing out the differences between instruments through EQ and panning.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
People, so that when the transitions happen, it sounds more like a new section and not just continuation.
One of my favorite ways to do that. Time is up, so we'll
We have one
maybe
more
continue
piece
this later. We have one more piece.
Yeah, we can get to it.
Yeah,
Right now.
Yeah, I say so.
Okay.
because otherwise it's 15 minutes. We've got that time.
Okay. Well, then I'll talk
Good.
with you later about it. Yeah.
It was great.
Fantastic
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Great real piece, too.
Is
Yes.
this Elizabeth's
This
piece?
is Elizabeth.
Okay.
Elizabeth.
Last is Elizabeth with Jelly and Shelley's Treasure Hunt.
Alright, so, I'm gonna be the reporter, you is the game jam, game great, so it's gonna become a tradition, from yeah.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
Just to let you know, the board can't hear you.
Alright, so I was explaining how Game Maker Studio does their quarterly game jam, GM48, so some friends and I, it's kind of become a tradition every October we work on this together, so this is the level music for Jelly and Shelley's Treasure Hunt, where Jelly is a jellyfish and Shelley's a crab, and they're friends, and they have to work together to get to the treasure chest again, the underwater level. And there's like turtles they have to watch out for.
Those turtles.
You know, Jelly has to watch out for floating water, she'll float away. And then Shelley can like jump to the bike, they have to work together basically. And the art style is done with markers. So it's kind of like a cute cartoon type of thing. So I was trying to make the music match that. And the loop will suddenly cut off at the end because it's the loop
It's supposed to loop? Okay.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you. Awesome. Here we go. Jelly and Shelley. And back to the front.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Banjo Kazooie there, just a little bit. I got it.
Totally.
I got some Banjo Kazooie. Definitely, like right around 30 seconds. I was like, yeah, this is hitting some sweet spots
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
I got 30 right there.
I got it
It
too.
was good. Yeah, I would definitely leverage that as much as you can. My only other two notes is that the kick, like the constant beat of the kick felt a little tired after a while. And I think you have like marimba and you have some other instruments that sound tropical influenced, but then you have like a kick drum, like maybe a conga or some bongos or a djembe or something that feels like it's going to tonally match those instruments would work good. And then the only other thing is there's a lot of notes. So like I think you could even have spots where you have breathing in some of those patterns, and maybe you will because this was only the first minute. So I think as long as you're hitting more that Banjo Kazooie kind of vibe, and then have some spots to breathe, it'll be great.
It's super wonderfully. It's the kind of thing that just brings you along. I liked how it felt like the way the water was moving. It really did. That's what it made it feel like to me. And at 30, I wrote "Look out," so that was my note for there. And I just really loved how the harmonies were. I wrote "fun and unexpected," so top marks for me with that. And I agree with an occasional melodic tacit would be really fabby.
Yeah, nailed it with the fun vibe.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. I would play this for hours.
And not get bored.
Yeah, absolutely. How much of this are you playing with a keyboard rather than drawing in note for note?
So it's some playing with the keyboard, recording, quantizing. Tends to be more of that than note for note.
Gotcha. I might loosen up the quantization. Everything is so on point. Like you're never going to hear a marimba player play that tight. They're also going to have huge volume variances between each of their hits. I mean, they're using some weird joints, so there's going to be a lot of different things going on. So it might be cool. This can really suck if you're not a keyboardist like me. Learn how to play it on the keyboard, and then just quantize it lightly. If you're doing Cubase, iterative quantize is great. But then that gives it, like, it tightens it up, but it doesn't make it mechanical.
Okay.
Um,
You scare me when you talk about going off the grid. I'm like,
yeah, just move your notes anywhere you know.
That's a
No.
squash.
Well,
Well, it is Jelly and Shelly, so I mean, if they're a little,
Yeah.
I like the idea of iterative. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
But you're saying to make it less mechanical. It
Exactly,
almost sounds
yeah.
like an arpeggiator.
It kind of sounds like a
points.
music box, almost.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Learn to play
Yay!
marimba and then play it in.
Awesome.
Right.
All right,
Turn it
so
out.
we are going to be kicked out of here. Thank you so much for the wonderful
Yeah,
submissions.
Guys
thank
are awesome.
you.
They're
Everybody.
great.
Yeah.
No need to get the hook.
All right, I'm going.